Hello, my name is Mike, and I really hope that you can hear me, because this bike is loud. I'm on the 2020 BMW S1000RR, and a decade ago when this bike came out, it was immediately the king of the superbike category. But now, a decade later, Ducati, Aprilia, even Yamaha have all caught up to it. So is it still the king? Well, let's go and find out. The engine is still a 999cc four-cylinder, but now it develops 207 horsepower. Well, if you look on the Canadian website, it develops 207 horsepower. On the American website, it says it develops 205. But I'm in Canada now, so I'll go with 207. BMW's engineers have managed to make it a bit lighter and a bit narrower. And now, it also has BMW shift cam technology. So what that means is, at 9,000 RPMs, it goes from a mild cam to a hotter cam. And that's what gets you your max horsepower at around 13,000 RPMs. BMW's engineers have also tried to make the torque curve a little bit more linear. So you can feel a little bit more torque through the mid-range, but it's not that big of a difference compared to the last generation. One of the biggest differences that you're going to notice immediately when you hop onto it is just how easily this bike goes around corners. In fact, it wants to go around corners. Not only is it lighter than the last generation, but this particular bike has the M package, which gives you the carbon fiber wheels, so it's less unsprung weight. And that makes a huge difference around the corners. I mean, it just really, really wants to keep turning.
Of course, there are also a few ride modes to choose from. There are 4 standard modes and 3 additional modes if you opt for the race or M packages that you can customize to your own liking. The standard modes include rain, street, dynamic, and race, which all vary the engine output, ABS, traction control, and dynamic dampers, if equipped, to various different settings which range from the most intervention and least power in rain mode to almost no intervention and full power in race mode. There are also the 3 customizable Race Pro modes that allow each function of the bike to be set up to your own specific preference. Again, these modes are only available with the Race or M packages. A 6-speed sequential gearbox still does the job of transferring the power to the back wheel, and a quick shifter with auto blipper is now standard on all S1000RRs. Whether you have the throttle wide open or just partially at low RPMs, the quick shifter and auto blipper are smooth and quick to change the gears. Plus, with this exhaust system, it makes for some very satisfying sounds. Have a listen. My only complaint though with this gearbox is that neutral can be hard to find when you're at a stop. I found the best way to get it into neutral is to shift into it just before coming to a dead stop at a set of lights. Speaking of coming to a dead stop, the brake calipers, on the front at least, they're no longer Brembos like the previous generation. However, braking strength does not seem to have been affected because the bike can still stop on a dime. The BMW S1000RR has been one of the more comfortable superbikes on the market, well, relatively speaking. This 2020 S1000RR feels very similar to the last generation, but with a few slight tweaks such as the narrower engine and narrower gas tank. If you option your BMW S1000RR with the dynamic damper package, you'll get adaptive suspension which changes stiffness depending on the ride mode. In rain and street modes, the suspension is quite soft and can absorb most road bumps really well. But the suspension gets progressively stiffer as you move up the ride modes, which can make for a very uncomfortable ride on city streets. Heat management is a bit better than the last S1000RR. The revised fairings reduce the engine's overall heat by 10%, and the frame doesn't feel as though it's cooking your leg when you're in stop-go traffic like the last S1K. Just like their automotive counterparts, the BMW motorcycles are starting to become inundated with a lot of convenience features. This new bike features a bright 6.5-inch TFT display that is controlled via a rotary knob on the right clip-on. It takes some getting used to, especially when you're on the move, but it soon becomes muscle memory, although it's recommended to only dig through the menu settings when stopped. The last thing you need is distracted riding.
The looks obviously have changed compared to the last generation. It's a bit more symmetrical in the front with the LED headlights and daytime running lights. But from either side, it still looks different. It still has the shark gills on the right side and just one big open hollow hole on the other side of the fairing. The only thing I don't like is the rear tail lights. The tail lights and the turn signals are now part of the fender, basically. It's no longer like the old generation where the tail light is actually integrated into the back seat cowl. So is the 2020 BMW S1000RR still the king of the superbikes? That's kind of hard to say because both Aprilia and Ducati have really stepped up their games. This bike starts at just under $19,000. And for value for money, I think it's a really good bargain. The Ducati is way more expensive. So is the Yamaha R1M, surprisingly. The only one that gets close to it would be the Aprilia. But for an all-round street bike and the occasional track days, this one is really hard to beat. And in my book, it still is the king of the superbikes. It's just so easy to hop onto it and to go fast. At least when you don't have traffic in front of you. If you want to know more about the 2020 BMW S1000RR, I wrote a comprehensive review of it over on my website. You can find the link in the video description. And as always, I'll see you in the next car or truck or motorcycle, hopefully. But let's face it, most likely it'll be an SUV. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.